Welcome to the very first podcast. We have Jenna Zoe here, and she's my human design reader. I believe the best human design reader out.
I don't know any other ones.
You've never met one?
Me
neither.
Met another human design reader.
Me neither. It's actually Nitsa, who's in wellness. Sun Potion Nitsa 3 years ago said, what are you in human design? And I looked it up. And I think I had what everybody has, where I was like, oh shit, I'm not the manifester.
Yeah.
And that was the only time.
Wow.
Until we were in session and you mentioned it.
That's so crazy.
And I was like, oh, we have to trade. I really want to hear what it all means. So after that, Jenna read my chart.
Yeah.
And it's out of astrology, out of everything I've ever done. When I got off that call, I said, I've never felt more articulated and had more licensing in my entire life. Wow. It's like you read me entirely.
That's so cool.
So I couldn't wait to have you on here.
Yay.
And to be the first person, of course. You're like the first of everything. The cure, everything. And so we're going to pop right into this because I have so many questions to ask you, which I'll try to loop in some human design, but it's going to be a lot more about you. First, let's just start off right off the bat, because I want to start to treat this podcast as an expander series, so to allow you to be an expander for other people. Go ahead and tell us about your cultural background and upbringing.
Oh, my culture. Okay. Well, my mom is Indian and my dad is English, but I was brought up very, very English. So my mom is born in England, raised there, everything. So it was like a very, very typical English sort of upbringing. So very strict, very by the book, very, kids should be seen, not heard. Very, I say the sky is orange and you say yes. That type of thing. So that was like if I think about my upbringing, my childhood back then, it was very much, just do your, be a good child. And as long as you're a good child, then that's when you have worth. And then don't step outside of the boundaries, basically.
Which I know about, and you've done so much work around to decondition and be more in your type. Can you talk a little bit about what's been helpful for you?
Well, a session with you and doing all of the unblocks.
But you're like a full-blown, you are reading 2 books at a time.
Yeah.
What have been your biggest?
Well, I think, it's funny because what people call like trauma is like, I never would have thought that I had a traumatic childhood, but now thinking back to the way that it made me feel, it really was traumatic because it was so the antithesis of who I felt I was. So I was in a lot of pain, basically pretty much until maybe even 5 years ago.
Wow.
Because I just didn't have any connection to like, oh, what I am and what I'm doing is like cool, or it's okay, it's fine. So I never had that kind of like authority, from someone else to say like, you're fine. So that made me like a voracious like reader, seeker, looking into everything. I'll try astrology, I'll try this, I'll try that. Like I just wanted to try everything because I guess I just was like looking for something that was going to validate or show me another way. So I guess obviously the flip side of that is that it's made me really curious into self-help and wellness and all that stuff. So
and I think
sure
that's
why I chose
a pioneer for authenticity, and that everyone's so different and unique, and there's no one way. Do you want to talk about human design, just what it is?
Absolutely, yeah. So it's basically a system that was only discovered 31 years ago. That fuses a lot of different sources of wisdom. So you have the I Ching, you have Kabbalah, you have normal astrology, you have the chakra system, and human design basically fuses it all together, basically to say that this is your energy, this is what you were born as. And what we want to do when we talk about your higher self and being your higher self is get you back to who you were, that flavor of who you were on day 0 before the world basically came in and told you that you have to be something else other than what
like
you
seen
already
and heard, and you'll be a good kid if you're really loved.
Exactly. And so I think, with human design, the belief is that we already know how to live our lives the day we come onto this planet. But then, it's about it's not so much of a becoming your higher self, it's about an unbecoming of your higher self, of your conditioned self to become your higher self. So, for me, I look back and I see how it's also beautiful, because if I didn't have the pain of like not feeling like I knew who I was and being so judgmental because I had it bred into me, I wouldn't have like acceptance be such a big part of what I do now.
Absolutely. Same with me. My soul definitely chose to go through like who's this family? I don't even recognize myself. Like, I'm so different. But it was very much what allowed me to learn, which I have. It's so funny because I believe in the exact same thing when it comes to manifestation, is that we're all basically just chiseling away our shell to get back to who we are in that true authenticity.
Yeah.
And that's why human design's been so incredibly effective for me, because it's like, oh, here's a blueprint of what my authenticity is.
Yeah.
Fantastic, with some key tools and information of how I can just start living that right now.
Yeah.
Which is magic.
Yeah.
Going back, was it a small town or a big city that you were raised in?
London, big city.
So you totally grew up in London.
Yeah, big city. You know, very go-getter. Like, if you want something, you have to do it yourself, and you know, you always have to work hard, and work is hard. That was a big one. And you know, that very heavy. London is like a very, you know, literally it's a grey place, and energetically I feel like it's a grey place too. It's very dense. It's very, very accepting of doing things the way things are, right? By the book, which I guess, you know, being an Aquarian, that's not that easy to do things with everyone else's rules.
Too, right?
Triple.
Because what's your rising?
So I'm Sun, Moon, and Mercury in Aquarius, but I'm rising Virgo.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah, I know. Saved
Thank
by
you.
the rising. Otherwise, it'd be a total
Just
weirdo.
floating in space.
Yeah, there's a bit of Earth there.
Wow.
But yeah, London is like a very, like, you know, you do things this way, and that's the way that you will get by.
I've been curious about this. Will you speak just in a tiny nutshell to each type what environment they might thrive in more, whether it's city, country, or anything, climate? I'm just curious.
It actually doesn't really have much to do with your energy type. It has to do with what we were talking about on your on the video series, what we call in human design the base color and tone. Because human design will literally tell you whether you do well in cold climates, hot climates, groups, not groups, all those different types of things. So it's really fascinating. But what I will say off the bat is that projectors generally tend to do better in warm countries just because they run cold.
Interesting.
As people. Wow. So they need to be staying warm, whether that's living in a warm country or
fireplace,
you know, having exactly like exactly some kind of like heating around them. But everything else basically depends on, and not that much to do with your energy type, actually.
So they would have to pop in session and that's some information they could get. That's amazing. Okay, this is really my favorite one. That time I spent the gap of my life crying on the floor, and why?
Oh, wow. My whole childhood. Totally. Literally my whole childhood. The number one thing that I remember from my childhood was like, stop crying. Come on now, stop crying. Don't cry. You don't need to cry. And as a child, you have no idea why you're crying. Your soul is saying like, I'm not feeling like me, and I don't like being here. I don't know if you get it too, but sometimes I'm just like, why am I actually, it took me a long time to accept just like being on planet Earth as well.
Oh, for me
like,
too.
Why are we here?
Why am I so weird? Why am I so different? Why am I not like anybody in my family? Why don't they get me?
What's wrong with me? Therefore, all that stuff. So, and I just remember being called way too sensitive and just crying all the time.
And in human design, you would say that is because we have the open center as well, right? Yeah. That we're just taking on way more than we know what to do with. Yes, exactly.
And I have something in my chart that basically is called the channel of the sensitive, which basically means that the number one reason you're supposed to be here is like sensing other people's needs before your own, which is a beautiful thing. But obviously when you're a kid and you have no idea what that is, and you get told that that's a bad thing, is like,
it's also known as like codependency. Like you're just so into
well, that's the number one thing. The first thing that we worked on was that book, Codependent No More. Now I believe there's an unblocked around that though, isn't there? Codependency.
Yeah, no.
I feel like there could be another
one there should be like a full blown, because I'm so, and naturally I think just being like sensitive people, I don't know enough about human design, but like I do sense other people's, and I don't think I even have that in my chart, but I am so hyper aware of every single thing that's going on. Whereas my partner, who's a manifestor, could give two fucking I'm like always behind him, like saying thank you and like cleaning up and making sure that he's not like offending.
Well, that's anyone. A good manifestor though. At least he's not trying to be a people pleaser. But with projectors, because they see into the other, that's why they're hyper aware, because it's like, I can't unsee. Yeah. Like there's not a choice. It's not a thing you have to turn on. It's just like that's what comes with the territory, right? So crying on the bathroom floor was a lot of the time, and then I learned to suppress it. And then I didn't cry, and then I was still just, I guess, crying on the inside because I was doing things that I shouldn't have really ever have
or
tried to do.
Building it up and doing all of that stuff.
It was a long period of time.
The other question I have about that is kind of if we can, well, we can't really see that in our chart, right? Like if what we're going to experience. I mean, we can like have hints to it. If you're a parent and you have a child, you definitely have a lot of hints about how to parent them.
Oh, definitely. Oh my gosh, my favorite readings to do are people who have to do
and
kids.
Thank God for those parents who even care enough to do that.
The guy who founded human design, Ra-Uruhu, he basically was like, I'm letting this information out now, when he was still alive in the 90s and early noughties. He was like, it's great for you guys, like you can benefit from it and everything, but really the people I'm doing it for are for the unborn, because imagine how much they're going to be able to move forward in their lives if they never even have to decondition. Like if they're already raised according to their design, then, you know, I have 30 years of undoing before I get there. Whereas like if you were born, raised according to your design, you can just literally like fly through life.
Have you actually gotten to see clients who are truly implementing and their children are thriving?
I know a couple of people who are starting to raise their kids according to the way that they're supposed to be. And the one thing that they always say is like there's more harmony in the home.
Amazing.
And also I know that I don't need to steer my child the way, like it's kind of taking the pressure off a parent to say like I have to know how this kid turns out, because the kid already has their own agenda. So that's kind of great.
I love that.
But what you can see in the chart is what anybody's chart, there's something called an incarnation cross. And that basically, there are 584 different types of incarnation crosses. But what it basically will tell you is like, what's the arc of your life? Like, what's going to be the theme of your life?
Wow.
So like mine, for example, is a cross of the 4 ways, which is about making sure the tribe is nourished spiritually and literally.
Wow.
So it could be one or the other, and obviously what I do like fits into that, but it's not just your work, it's your whole life's work, right? So you can kind of have hints as to like why people are here, which is beautiful too.
And just like knowing how to nourish your children, nurture them if they are investing in those kind of things, and then letting them be until they find their way back and stuff. That's so magical.
But also, you know, with doing people's seeing their incarnation cross and things, it's like I was saying to you earlier, like sometimes people are just here to fix their karma with learning to love their body. So sometimes it has nothing to do with work, and that's something I'm really like emphatic on reiterating, because we're also kind of like finding why we're here to do with like what we do with work, but it's so many other things.
Okay, I love that. Another big one that I always love and I ask every expander is, everyone plays the fool in love, that time that I lost all self-respect, and what would be your quickest tips looking at our chart of like how to deal with that?
Of being in a relationship?
Yeah, it can be anything, but mostly like that time I played the biggest fool in love, when I just got my heart broken. I was retarded and I didn't get anything back that I was giving.
Well, I think the big thing I learned big thing I learned is that, and this is such a human design concept, that we use our heads too much to make the decisions, and instead of living in our bodies. That's the whole goal of human design, is knowing that your body and the noises inside your body, the voices that we have inside of us are really supposed to be the decision makers, where we've all gone to the mind to give too much of given the mind too much authority. So, you know, for me with relationships, it's like, actually we spend so much time trying to think about like, oh, well, I don't feel that good, but I feel good enough, so I should stay, so I shouldn't stay, and maybe this and that. And I would say always wait until you're absolutely done to leave a relationship, because otherwise you always will wonder what if, or you'll go back, or you'll be curious, or you'll go get back with that person or whatever.
My terminology is like, you didn't learn your lesson, you're gonna attract that again. Like
and then if you're using your mind, then you haven't actually made the proper decision. So if you've like intellectualized it and left prematurely, then it's not over. You have to feel it in your body.
Or if you're intellectualizing staying because you're afraid and fear and all that.
So feeling in your body is a really important thing for me with relationships, of like, is this still making me literally just on such a basis level, without like the shoulds, you know, because I think we tried to like, especially women, because we like talk about it with our girlfriends, and I've just been that person so much where I've like wanted to have like the right thing to do, like help, you know, prescribe to me type of thing. And instead I just have to wait until I'm like, no, this is horrible, I'm out. And just giving myself the grace to wait it out instead of being like, no, well, if something bad's happened, then I need to leave him immediately. Like, that's not always the case.
Absolutely. And I like another big thing I tell people too is like run into the fire. Like get like absorb what you need to get out of that situation.
Like what's the worst that can happen?
The person came into your life for a reason as well.
Yeah.
I don't believe, like for me at least, I don't believe in like the human experience that much. I just believe in souls like working out their karma and growing, or things mirroring so that you can unblock. So that's a great like tip on that. It's like get what you need out of it. Like might as well.
Like wait until you're really done.
Sure.
Like,
100% in your body. Rather than your mind. I love that. So for you, when you like maybe the biggest heartbreak you've gone through, have you been through heartbreak? What was that like? And you don't have to talk about the relationship.
Yeah, no. So when I was 18, I was in a relationship for 2 years, and that ended really not so well because I discovered that he'd been cheating on me with all of my friends knowing and no one telling me. So that was a tough one, because then all of a sudden you're like, oh well, I'm also reassessing all of my friendships as well at the age of 20, when you're like, oh, you know, this guy did this to me and whatever, and then you're like, oh, I have to get rid of all my friends as well.
It was like a big house cleaning.
It was like a huge house cleaning. But it was cool because it made me realize that, like, I don't know why one day I woke up and I was like, oh, I don't have to let this be about me. Like the cheating isn't anything to do with me. And so that was like quite a good one because it helped me get stronger.
Awesome, man. I love that.
And then I stayed single for a really long time after that because I was like, I'm not doing that again. And then my previous relationship to this one was my really codependent one, where nothing got spoken about. I did everything to pretend like I was undependent, which is also another form of codependency.
Totally. Yeah, it's
like I don't need you. We don't need to talk about things. We never argue. We're so great because we never argue. You know, all that rubbish. And so that was like another big one, because I think I kind of was breaking my own heart in that relationship, to be honest with you.
It's a good lesson to learn, that you do care about intimacy and you do want true connection, good and bad. And
totally. Rather than like taking the strong point of like, no one can have the power to hurt me and this and that, which, you know,
it's all bullshit.
Yeah.
It's all bullshit. I love that. That's such a good thing too, that you woke up one morning and realized it didn't have to be about you. I think, I don't know anybody who hasn't been in that situation, and I think everybody internalizes that and makes it, what was wrong with me? Am I not sexual enough? Am I not attractive enough? And all the things.
But you know, that was 11 years ago, and I wonder now, like, I don't think if that happened to me today, I would still be able to do that, because I also think the world now, like with social media and with the awareness of how much we have, like I think I would have to go through that all over again, like still get back to that place, because it's so much more, like we're so much more hyper aware of like what everyone else is doing. Like I think it's way harder to be cheated on now than it was 11 years ago. Like it sounds silly, but I really do feel that.
No, I absolutely agree. And I think so many other programmings play a part of it. Like now we're getting older, and now things are supposed to be a certain way, and now things are meant to be more serious because we're adult. Like there's more stakes at hand, even though when you're 18 you do feel like this is the end of the world.
Oh, totally.
I was like, no, my thing really matters.
I
remember.
And what about like exactly, and then you're like, hold on a second, and then I don't know why, it just one day I was like, oh okay, well maybe this was nothing to do with like me being, but I also had, this is interesting because I also had really terrible acne at the time, like acne so bad that I didn't want to leave the house, like that bad acne. And
because your skin's unbelievable.
Thank you. But I was in a place anyway where I accepted being unattractive. So in a weird way that kind of helped me. Because I was like, it's
protecting.
It's not because I'm not pretty. He was with me anyway when I had bad skin, so it's not about my looks. I don't know. Weirdly, it was like a blessing. Yeah, I don't know.
And how did you heal your acne for the people that are struggling with that?
Just like I tried, honestly, Lacy, I tried everything. Like I tried all the antibiotics, all the best facial. I would go to the facialist. My mom would make me go to the facialist once a week, and I would cry at the facialist. I know. And literally just a year and a half of eating super, super clean, super, super healthy was the only thing that made it go away.
And what did that look like for you? Although I know it varies for everyone, like the clean.
So it was because it was 11 years ago, it was like very unfun, because back then it was like much more like crunchy and hemp, like
totally,
that type of thing. So it was like, I mean, I think about it now and I'm like, oh God, I couldn't even imagine eating that same stuff now. But it was like a hard-boiled egg on a rye cracker. And like, do you know what I mean? Totally. Like very basic.
Yeah. That probably helped you create, which we'll get into, because you had you have 2 cookbooks, as well as you had a full company of vegan treats and all sorts of stuff.
That's why I created the vegan treats, because I was like, I need to still eat things that are exciting, because all I'm doing is putting blue-green algae in water and drinking that with hard-boiled eggs. And it was like soy yogurt and super boring. No one had any like fun stuff. There was no like playfulness and creativity to living like healthy. Wow. So
on an energetic level, why do you think that you received the acne, or what lessons did you have to learn from it?
There's so many reasons. Oh my gosh. I think I was growing up, I was always a pretty child. And so I think the blessing in disguise of having acne was really learning, like being able to rely on, in my formative like teenage years, not identifying with being like pretty as my main like value add. So I think in a weird way it was a thing that really helped me just be confident in who I was underneath.
God, I wish I had had that lesson, because that's like a lot of, I was only valued for being beautiful. Really? Always. Yeah. Even though to this day, my mom, because one of the exercises I'll give people sometimes and clients is like, call up your parents and ask. I think I heard this on something before, like call up your parents and ask what you were like when you were little, before any of this stuff started. And without a doubt, everybody says how smart you were. You were so smart. You were too smart for me. You were too quick for me. I shouldn't have had you as a kid, because I couldn't fucking handle how smart you were. And I was never, ever valued for being intelligent. In fact, because I had 2 young parents, I was constantly feeling like just nobody cared as much about academics and things, that I was kind of stupid in comparison to my 2 cousins who I grew up around, whose parents very much cared about their academia, and they were always in advanced classes, even though I still think I'm incredibly intelligent. Yeah. So that's beautiful that you got to go through that and really strengthen your inner worth.
But it's a trip either way. Like, if you feel unattractive, it's great, and if you feel attractive, it's like you have to undo some stuff.
It's a curse either way. Yeah,
for sure. Totally. Like, we just all need to explore that thing regardless. But I grew up always being a pretty kid, a smart kid, and then having acne for 4 years, I just was like, oh, it's none of these things. So then that, I think, was the thing that sparked like, there's got to be something else underneath. Like, wow. My boyfriend always like rolls his eyes, but I'm like, my acne is the best thing that ever happened to me. And he's like, stop. I'm like, no, seriously.
That's awesome.
Yeah, such a blessing in disguise. Wow. Obviously at the time, not at all, but.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so you are the success story who was able to heal it naturally through food. Yeah. And it sounds like through really getting to know yourself as well.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But even now, if I have like one, if I eat something that I used to eat now or whatever, it will still come back. So it's not something I'm like totally.
It will surface. What triggers it the most, out of curiosity?
Like really rich foods. So like pizza or things that are like a combination of like, fats and salts and sugars and all the things. Wow. Like I can have sugar sometimes and it won't affect me that bad. But I guess it's all, I'm like a huge believer that it's all digestive. So,
totally, yeah. Same.
Anything that's like the body just isn't designed to digest. Like I'm just lucky that I get to see it.
Yeah.
I'm always like, so part of this conversation of like my acne is the best thing that has ever happened to me. I used to always be jealous of those girls when I had to eat healthy. You read a magazine and it says like, oh, this actress can eat like a burger and this and that. And I'm like, oh, through that I got like, oh, I'm not actually jealous because I have to treat myself well. That's a blessing.
Yeah.
And that's where my other half was like, stop. Like if we could all eat like, whatever we wanted and never be fat, it would be fine. I'm like, no, but it's really amazing because it keeps you
in your flow and your integrity. Yeah. Absolutely. I love that. So when I found clarity, I like to ask this, when I found clarity on exactly what I wanted to do for career and how I received it, what was that for you? Like I think that you carry so many hats and you're probably going to do so many things in this lifetime, but when you've found the clarity, let's say on the company you had, because you had 2 companies, Skinny Lemon, you had the vegan treats and now Human Design. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about how that clarity came through.
So, I guess for me, I used to work at Jimmy Choo. So when I was 20, I said to you, I didn't go to university. I interned for 2 years figuring out what I wanted to do. And then at 20, I went and worked at Jimmy Choo. I was there for almost 5 years. And I worked for the woman that started it. I was her assistant. And so one day I woke up and I was like, why do I want to be here? What is it that I like about working at Jimmy Choo? And it was like, oh, because I like the fact that she's a woman, she's a boss of her own company. She created something totally new. And then I had this moment where I was like, oh, if I stay here any longer though, I could do this forever, but they're going to move me. They'll promote me, but it will be in production or it will be in
design,
whatever. And I was like, I don't want any of those things. I want to be her, but I'm never going to be her by staying here. So I need to go start my own thing. And being 24, I was like, okay, well, I'll just start my own company. And I just started making vegan treats. And
so she was your first expander.
She's still my expander to this day. Like her name's Tamara Mellon. She's a woman who I once saw her raise her voice. She was the only woman in the boardroom of guys, and she would rock up in a jumpsuit and high heels. And she like never played it the masculine way. She was always like so successful, but in such the feminine thing. And then she was also always reading self-help books in her spare time. So she was a really nice balance of like how to live in a yang world in such a yin way.
What are some of those qualities that you find, if you've noticed, in successful women who are able to stay in their feminine, in their yin, within such yang programming from everything?
Yeah. The ones that I know that I really look up to that do that are people who don't, sometimes it's really difficult when like energy is going high, like when there's a debate or there's a discussion that's heated or whatever. It's like when you don't give in to that heat or you don't meet the heat at that level. I see that as, for me, that's real power when people can still stay like how we're talking now, when everyone else is like, you know,
losing it.
Yeah. I think there's real like, that's
power.
A beautiful like feminine way to deal with things rather than like also have to raise your voice or also get aggressive or speak faster or whatever that is. And also just the ability to like wait and not always kind of like have to, you know, come back with a slick answer or have it all figured out. Like people that are like, okay, well, we'll figure it out. We'll see what happens. Like she always did that too. She was never like needing to know the answer if she didn't. She was always like, okay, we'll get the answer. Like
take your time.
So being like in my early 20s and watching that was like
a dream.
The best
it was like business school. Best on the planet. I had a really incredible executive producer who taught me so much about that. But she was though very yang. Within a yin environment.
Really?
Yeah, which was magical because I needed that medicine. Because I just did not, like, country girl who had never been around anybody who was like that big of a boss. It was we're still friends today. It was amazing. She was such an expander for me of how to like run things and how to be in my power and ask for what I want, and it was amazing.
That's so cool.
Now I'm having to relearn being yin.
Yeah, I'm having to relearn being yang as well. Wow. Well, like I never learned it. Like I'm really trying to learn the yang, like embrace I always feel like the odd one out because everyone's talking about the divine feminine and I'm like, but where's my yang? Like I need to find my yang because that's for me the thing that I like trying to work on the most at the moment is like where's my yang? Like where's my Mars in Aries? Because I know it's there. Yeah. But how does it show up in me? And
what have been some of the practices or things you've learned that you're incorporating?
I think just like, you know, so much of what your work is about, which is like what is a hard no, because that's a really yang thing. And then also money, you know, like unblocking with money because like you say, money is masculine energy. I grew up in a wealthy family and so I was raised that I never had to think about money because that's obviously... Or that women can't make money or leave it to the men. And so it's not something that you have to explore, right? And so having done the unblocked, the opulence was a really big thing for me because it's like, okay, it doesn't have to be the masculine in the way that you think about it. It's just it's a masculine energy within, which I never...
It's just a commanding energy.
Absolutely, exactly. So that's still, you know, I've done some work around it, but it's still obviously... you know, so many more layers that it takes. I'm the complete opposite. That's why I think I can never get pregnant. I'm like, my mom's like a guy. It's just masculine energy, and I'm having to learn to be a projector. I feel like projector is a very yin energy. It is a very yin energy, and that's it doesn't come natural. So it probably did when I was little. Probably, yeah. I wonder. I'd be curious to find out. I know. But I was raised around very strong men. And therefore, I genuinely believe that I would never have to worry about money and think about money. So it was like, okay, well then just don't even explore that part of yourself. Even if you have, but now I'm like, listen, even if it's coming out of the wazoo everywhere, I still have to think about
what lights you up and how to do it. I love that. That's so beautiful, especially because people are usually really, really afraid to talk about that. They're so programmed if they do come from money or wealth that it's like bad, be hush. But people need that expanding. Like 1,000%. You are a woman who has started your company really, really taking off now with your current gift. It's like you can do it and you're worth it. And the deprogramming of that, we always hear about the people who come from nothing and they have to like strap on their boots, but nobody has those expanders who are like,
and I was like, my old boss Tamara, her dad started Vidal Sassoon.
Wow, look at this family. They just
so he started Vidal Sassoon. She borrowed 100,000 off him, and then she started Jimmy Choo. So I guess I had that subconscious expander of like, oh, she can do it, and that's how she did it, so I could do the same.
I love that.
But I started companies because one of my beliefs was like the only way to make money is by having companies when you provide products and services. And therefore I did have companies and I did write 2 cookbooks. But A, it was never really what made me happy, and B, the universe was literally trying to, I believe block me from having success there because it just wasn't supposed to be where I was. So it took me having to give all that up and to do human design to really discover what flow,
which is so scary because it could be perceived as a failure, it can be perceived in so many things, but you really gracefully really transition, and it just seems like it's the beautiful flow, like you really are in your flow right now.
I don't think I realized, and I think this is something that I would want to hear, like I don't think I realized how much I was forcing and pushing because of a belief system that was never really mine to begin with. And believing that versus like, oh, that really wasn't my truth, and now how much flow I can experience when I just feel like I'm living more according to my own rules versus the belief systems that were
amazing
before I did all the unblock. Like literally, like I remember I read Codependent No More, did your work, you told me to read Homecoming.
This is before Unblocked came out.
This is before all the Unblocked, but the Unblocked is way better. Like I've done the Unblocked as well.
You're one of the few clients who would like really read the books and do it all, and then I was like, I have to create Unblocked because people are not doing this work.
But then it was after that I was like, shit, I'm doing stuff that I'm really just not supposed to be doing. And that's what made me get rid of it. Like I always say to people, like if I'd never done your work, I never would be a human design reader in my life, because I'd be like, what? Human, like the alternative things, like come on, like how can you make a business out of that? Literally, that's like I was that person. Like it sounds so crazy to say that, but I literally was, you know, like judgmental of all that.
How is your family supporting it?
So I think in the beginning they didn't really get it.
Totally.
At all. It took basically my mom asking me to do her chart, then she really got it. My brother asking me to do his, my sister. I still haven't done my dad's. I'm waiting for him to invite me. But until they basically saw that it was bringing me more success than I'd had in 6 years of doing my food businesses.
Of like soliciting, essentially.
Literally soliciting. And also, just because I don't think it was what I was supposed to be here to do, I watched so many other girls like zoom past me.
It's so hard. It's so hard when that happens.
And you go, what the hell's wrong with me? I'm doing everything. Like, what's the trick that I'm missing? And now I'm like, oh, thank God I didn't have success with it, because my wrong ego would have just got bigger and bigger.
Totally.
I'd have lived further outside of my real self.
Exactly. You would have gotten sick. Acne would have come back. Like something.
All the thing. I would have been in a horrible relationship. It just like bleeds into everything.
All the
you know?
things. I agree. I'm so happy.
It was literally just from doing Unblocked that I was like, oh shit. Okay,
amazing.
This isn't me.
And I could see it, like, even because I've had, you know, clients who will be like, well, I do this and I do that, and I never feel the intuition to be like, let's trade. It's very rare, but I knew, I was like, I want to trade. And then when you did, I was like, she's going to be doing that. Cool. I just knew it.
Wow. Yeah, and I needed people like you to see it, and Dara, who you know as well, to say like, you should do this as your job. Because there's no way that old conditioned me would have even been able to conceive.
So I hope people are listening who are in a similar position where it's just so socially unacceptable or normal. And going back to from coming from wealth, I think not enough people have those expanders, because something I would notice, right? Like here in LA, if you were an actor and you met kids, you're like, oh, well, of course, they're a kid of an actor. They're going to be, no, I want to say like whole-handedly being someone who acted, who's been around people from wealth, who around like famous families, that never, ever, ever like solidifies or guarantees somebody's success. In fact, it usually works against them because there's so many expectations to have to reach. So like, that's something I just want you to talk about too. If you felt pressure, like you have to, like, what does that look like for you?
Absolutely. Like my pressure in the beginning was why I started 2 businesses, because I thought the only way to prove myself as I'm not one of those women that's good for nothing and get sidelined is by starting a business and making money the way that you guys make money. So that was obviously never conscious. It was like
it's also
the only way to make money is like start a business and do it in the male way and whatever, and push and force and hustle and you know, all that stuff. And I just, there was so much proving behind all of that stuff. And actually, you know, it's exactly that. Like right now, I don't know a single human design reader, but I also, in my family, there's no one who does what I do, not even close. It's all, they all work together, they're all men, they all, you know, it's that cigar smoking plutocratic. Like,
it's like very,
I love them all,
British,
but it's very British and it's very the antithesis of what I do. So there's nothing that they could do to help me. They don't know people in wellness. They can't get me readings.
They don't see like the business.
They can't give me shit. Like there's so many things that obviously, you know, brought up in comfortable surroundings. That's amazing. But when it comes to my career, it literally has zero help of me at all. You know,
it's amazing.
But if it did, then great too. Like
it's all beautiful. But it's just being able to recognize like you really are in your flow because you're listening to your gifts and you're really going after them regardless. And I believe you're gonna do many things in life. I think it'll be multiple, but great. And then in terms of the chart, I think I might have asked this a little bit before, but like being able to well, I guess I'm going to stick away from this question because we do have that other video. So I'm going to steer clear of that one. What was your biggest shadowy aspect that you've had to integrate in order to see things starting to really transpire for you and your happiness?
I think my biggest fear as a kid was that I'm a bad person, like an evil person, like an evil person.
I had that, like there's something wrong with me, but not evil.
Like people are going to discover that I'm bad.
Most
that was
people
a big one. And like not just bad, like unworthy, but like evil, like bad. Like
what sort of triggered that, or what brought that on to you?
I think maybe it was the whole like, if you know my upbringing of like, if you do things the right way, then you're good. There was anytime I had a temptation to do something else or wanted to kind of be contrarian, which is my nature, then I would be like, oh, your real self is like evil, because that's the shame around that. And I think having to go through all my shadow and basically see that we're all like, only once I accepted like we're all light and dark, and like being okay with the dark, that's like the only way I would have got to like a good basis of self-worth. Just underneath, like obviously it goes up and down every day, but
totally,
you know, that basis of self-worth like only came from a place of like, yeah, sometimes I have crazy disgusting thoughts, but that doesn't mean I'm like a terrible person.
Amazing.
But I put that in my shadow so long of like, no, like especially I think such a trap at the beginning of your spiritual journey is all like light and unicorns and all my blessings,
positive vibrations,
and and I'm just like, I can't, like when I see that, just because it reminds me of my old self, I'm just like, that is such a place of like ignoring such a powerful other half of you, where it's like
it's a disservice for people. It's such a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And people, it's so funny, maybe this happens to you too, but your friends that aren't in the wellness world will tag you in things on Instagram and be like, oh, this is so you, and it will be like a meme about like light and love, and I'm like, but that's not it. Like that's not me at all. Like don't put me in the camp.
Totally.
I'm not like unicorn. I mean, I was like unicorns and fairies, and it's all, you know.
I think everyone starts there. I think that's what that's the little tiny bit that people in the West extracted when they went to the East. Like all the yoga culture was like love, but it's like, oh wow, most of those gurus, most of those people reach that state of enlightenedness, that open-heartedness through like going through all the other dharma and like really. So I think they only kind of extracted the spiritual part. And it was so big in like the 90s, the 2000s. I think all of us sort of started there.
Massively.
I did.
Yeah, me too.
Totally.
And then now I'm just like, oh, I'm so sickened by my own like message back then. Like, why was I trying to think that was like better? Because I was totally like living up here in the world of ideas and the ideals rather than just like, how do we actually make this here better?
What's the most humbling thing you've ever experienced?
I don't know if it's the most humbling thing ever, but the most recent one that comes to my mind is about giving up my 2 companies.
I bet it's a hard pill.
And saying, do you know what? Like, I'm okay without, people can think whatever they want. The pain of me trying to still be this person is bigger than them saying like, oh, she gave it up or this and that. And that I do live in a culture that is like that very much so I had to be like, okay. And also writing 2 cookbooks, just because someone asked me to, I said yes, because I thought, well, who am I to say no? I'm in wellness, they obviously think I'm good enough. I totally gave them my self-worth. Like if my publisher wants me to write a book, then I should say yes, because that's a good thing for girls in wellness and health to do. And my books, they were, looking back, they're actually great books, but they didn't sell anywhere near as much as all the other, now some of the girls that have done so well with books. This girl, Deliciously Ella.
Oh yeah, totally. That's the one everyone knows. Like,
she comes from a great background, really wealthy background, did so well because she's doing what she's meant to do on this planet. And I just remember, being like, why some girls like her and not me? And again, just because I just wasn't supposed to do that.
Yeah, totally.
And then it took me saying yes to a second book to get the lesson, Lacy. Like, I didn't get it the first time around. One had to not sell well, and me devote all that time to it, and me kill myself trying to make a cookbook.
It is so hard.
And then do it again, and then be like, never again.
It's so funny because everyone's been asking for a book, and I've been approached by many people, but everything inside of me goes, no, I'm not clearing it yet. Like, it's like, I'll do it when I'm ready.
When you're ready.
And that could be 10 years from now. That's one thing that my dad as an Aquarius taught me, like, do what you fucking want and you'll see great. And it's hard for him because he had to give up everything when he had me. He was 18, so he had to become an insurance broker and have a real life. But he is I have to credit him to being the one who's like, you can do a roller coaster, let's go. He really taught me how to be fearless about being me in a lot of ways.
That's
and
so
not
cool.
no
not in others.
ways.
Exactly with my dad. My dad's also an Aquarius, also a projector. And was like, when everyone goes left, you go right. One of the good ththings I got from one of the very many good things I got from that.
And anything with polarity. They all have their lessons to teach us.
Totally.
And, when was a pivotal point where you figured out, you know what, I am a badass and I'm worth what I want?
To be honest with you, I think it only really started, I had to see it before I believed it, in the sense that only when I witnessed myself saying things to people that I could see was of value. Mm-hmm. When things would come out of my mouth that I'm like, I don't even know where this is coming from, but it's really having an effect on people, then I was like, okay, there's something to this, I get this. But before that, again, we were asking me about being a badass, and I'm defaulting straight to work, which is the very thing I'm against with what you're here to do. But I think when my last relationship ended because he one day just was super abusive verbally to me. And when I just was like, no, that's my low, I'm done. After that, I was single for 3 weeks until I met my current partner. And I think that was much more of an inner, I'm a badass, of just because I'm willing to not put up with the rubbish, I've got to be worth something, because I'm not lazy, unsexy, all the stuff that I was basically
being told you were.
So that
which he was just calling out your projectorness.
I was like, he doesn't get that I'm a projector, and they all think projectors are lazy,
but good for you. And it's so with manifestation too, you're like, goodbye, fuck you, and bam, this great guy comes.
Literally, I was single, and I didn't even think about how I was gonna find someone, wasn't even interested, whatever, and then just came straight in. So that was more a basis of self-worth. And then he was like, my current one was like, why do you see how great you are? Always.
He's your vision holder. So you keep growing too. More and more into it for him. I love that. Those Taurans. They're so earthy.
They're so earthy. I know. It's
wow.
the best.
Can you talk about how, I guess we sort of covered this, but like, what are your 2 thoughts on like how someone can kind of find if they have ego in their chart or not, like when they're really supposed
in their
to
chart
welcome their ego?
Do you mean ego like the good ego, like
Yeah,
good
like,
healthy sense of
like
ego?
yeah, or if you're not supposed to and you're
Yeah.
getting too like wrapped up in other people's
Yeah.
egos. Yeah.
So in human design, ego is literally, and just the simple definition of ego is like a set of vision of like what you want in the world, like your own wants, your own, like this is where I end and the world begins kind of thing. So in human design, you have 30% of the population that's here to have a strong version of ego. And 70% of the rest of the population aren't supposed to be driven by egoic wants.
And what are they driven by? Like, what are the things, examples?
So people that are not supposed to be driven by ego are literally just supposed to embrace like what it is that they love to do and trust that the money and the success and the influence and the power, the impact, whatever else comes as a byproduct of you doing what you love.
I love that.
Whereas people who have a defined ego, let's say for example their ego makes them want money, it's supposed to be like when they get offered something with money, like they're supposed to embrace that.
Yeah.
Whereas someone who's not supposed to embrace that is supposed to say, well, no, I'm going to say no to the money just because it's coming up for me now.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to still just do what my gut is telling me to do if you're a generator or whatever, and just to trust that you don't have to think about the money.
And it
will come
by doing what you love.
Yeah.
Because you and I both have ego.
We both have ego, which means like, and this is going to sound weird until I explain it, but like, okay, you want something successful comes, like something that promises you success is supposed to be like, F yes, I'm going for it, let's do it. And the only reason why we think that that's bad as a society is because we think that people, like in the past, people who've wanted to embrace success or embrace money have come with the consciousness of like, well, there's not enough to go around, so if I'm getting it, then that means I'm evil. But that's the only way to keep people down, is treat them all the same.
Totally.
You know? So that's why we want to dehomogenize people.
Yeah.
But with ego, we have such bad examples of people who are in the world right now who are like money hungry, which means that they will take from other people. Like just because you embrace money, you would never take from someone else. You know what I mean? So that's where we need to like also break it apart a bit and be like, there's more than enough to go around. So like embracing it as the first thing that you follow, or the thing that follows from what you choose to do first, it's all good.
Yeah, either way, whatever you're designed.
Exactly.
And what would be some famous people who have in their chart ego, and then ones that don't have ego?
For example, Tony Robbins has a strong ego, which means
Wait, you have to talk about with the Tony Robbins what you told me, because he's a manifesting generator.
He's a manifesting generator.
Because I've had clients and friends who go to his things and they're like so pumped.
Oh yeah.
And my life has changed, and then 2 days later they're like, now what? And like nothing changed.
So that's the other thing with having ego, is that because you're motivated by these things, you can very easily infect other people by your level of hunger and motivation, which makes him a great life coach, because what happens is he'll get up on a stage and be like, basically people will be picking up on his hunger and his motivation. So in the moment you're walking away feeling like you're motivated and you've got that motivation and it's your own, right? But actually all you've done in that moment, when you're talking about from a human design perspective, from the energetics, is you've temporarily become as hungry or as motivated as him, because you're open in that area, so you've taken it on. And
it's my projector
it's not
client who won.
Yeah.
So she's like totally open. Yeah.
And then you go home, and then it's not really who you are, and it's not meant to be who you are. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
And then you might be wondering like, okay, well, why was I motivated when I was there and now I'm so lazy, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
70% of the population that doesn't have ego is supposed to feel super motivated sometimes and so unmotivated other times.
Wow.
And motivation is supposed to be like this rather than like this, which is what someone like Tony obviously is experiencing it as like motivation is a thing that is always on, and it should be on, and we should figure out how ways to hack so that it's on. That's just not the case for most people.
Totally.
So it's really fascinating.
That's where human design to me just becomes so beautiful. It's such a key to yourself. It's crazy.
I know.
Because when you can, if you're somebody who doesn't have ego and you tap in, you're like, great, cool. Now I never have to really be like led, like, how am I going to make my fortune to feed myself? Or now I can just really follow my passion. If I'm a generator, like now I can just really only say yes to the things that light me up, and that power, that worth, that authenticity is going to
reflect exactly. Like, and you say this all the time, it's like all these things like money and power and whatever, they're just all reflections of where you're at. It's not that we all think like, oh, if I don't think about it, then it's never going to come to me. Absolutely not
at all. Doesn't like determine
you don't
anything.
Have to strategize about it. If you're 70% of the population, you don't even have to think about it. Like,
it's amazing.
It will just come.
You just have have to be in your type, your worth,
Yeah,
your
you just have
bliss.
to unblock, decondition it, whatever. It's not even like a conscious thing. It's like you have to just get rid of, like, what I like to say is like you just have to get rid of the brakes. Like, then
Totally, like take the rocks out of the river, like keep it going. I totally agree. Or like empty your aura, essentially. Get it going. All right, so today, what is one thing you'd like to go back and tell your lowest self? The most important thing.
Your worth has nothing to do with what you do.
And so what would that look like for you?
Like, I think the old me thought that I had to prove my worth the whole entire time, and I just was like pedaling underwater, you know, just basically my whole life wasting. It's like wasting so much energy trying to justify like how productive I was, what was I kind of like looking like on the outside. I guess everyone feels that though. But just always trying to prove things with like how much of a hard worker I was, or how much of a struggle life had to be in order for me to be successful, or for people to think I was successful. Like my old self would have rather have struggled and not had success than found it easy to be successful.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm the same. It was like that as well for me. The limiting belief that you picked up, you're still trying to work through today?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think it comes back to that yang thing of like, I can be assertive and it's not unattractive, or it's not disgusting.
I heard you say on Jordan's podcast that was what is it called? The new female, the new
alpha female.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
in human design, basically in 2027, we're entering into a new world way of doing things, which is so much more about letting life come to you, being in a more passive, receptive state rather than the kind of active, strategic state that we're in right now. And so basically everyone that's alive right now is a mix of the two in various different degrees. And so there are some people that are basically here as bridge people, which means that they're here to help people cross over from the old world way of doing things to the new world way of doing things. So the new alpha people that have this new alpha female energy inside them are really people who different women have to embody it in different ways. But the new alpha female archetype in general is that one that doesn't kowtow to being like aggressive and whatever, but also still being able to be assertive without having to do it in the old masculine way, which we literally don't have examples of, who that woman is like totally right now. So we're in that stage of really, doing this against everyone and trying to like, it's like having a patchwork archetype from like thousands of different people being put together, and everyone's embodying it in a slightly different way. So for me, I'm just like literally trying to expand by seeing different people and how they embody like the new type of alpha female. For me, the thing that's really hard is like, even if I speak up now or I get a bit too emphatic, I'm like, oh no, I shouldn't have said that. Or like, that's a really big one for me at the moment of like, it's okay to sometimes be annoyed or be angry or be whatever. Like, whereas I still have such a judgment over that.
Oh, I love that you're still chipping away.
Oh, I think until the day we die, we're not done. Like, there's always more. And every time I kind of think of it like a Game Boy, like every time you think you've like won one level, you're like, shit, I'm at level 2, and it feels like right at the beginning again. But even though I'm at a new level, it feels like I have to start from the beginning.
Same. So I'm exactly there too.
God, do I have to do this again?
I'm like, can I just, what I saw the movie last night. I worked so much yesterday that I needed to do something to just totally zone out. I was too in it that I went to go see, what is it called? I think I'm pretty, or I'm pretty.
Oh, I feel I'm dying to see that.
Yeah, because I knew it was gonna be like such a good model for manifestation, and it was such like, I really encourage. It's such a silly. I'm not a big like slapstick silly funny person, but it is such a good model for pure magnetism. Is literally just owning your true pure essence and confidence is more magnetic than any possible physical exterior, internal. I mean, and so in that, it was really beautiful to see that whole it was like what I guess I took away when I walked away. I was like, why can't I just be at the level of where she was when she got like into the, had sort of the concussion and went to being her most confident person ever.
Wow.
But it's just like there's just layers. There's layers when you.
But I think, and in general, I haven't seen the movie, but I think Amy Schumer in general is someone who really is so she's just so authentic. Like,
so
she's
that's
just,
it. Yeah.
Like, whatever she's done is like
I talk
She's
about
one of those
it all
people.
the time.
Do you?
Like, I see it. There's a few of them that are like this. Like, Jennifer Lawrence is like that. And Angelina Jolie.
You said those two to me,
Yeah, are very much like that. Gabby Hoffman's one of those.
I don't know who that is.
So she was the youngest daughter in Transparent. I don't know if you watched that. And she was in Girls. She was like the wacky sister and whatever.
And she's like super herself.
And I like to use her as an example. Amy Schumer, sort of. Amy Schumer's still pretty mainstream in a way, you know, even though she's not like the quintessential whatever starlet bullshit that like who's trying to compare themselves to. But Gabby Hoffman like really is authentic in her appearance, her look, and just total feminism, I guess. That's that way. Yeah. Where the commonalities that they all really share is they're unapologetically authentic and detached from needing other people's approval. It's so magnetic. It's crazy. So magnetic. Yeah. So that movie is like no exception.
I need to see it. You do go through phases where I think like again like you obviously never done, but it's like you sometimes like get a taste of that. You know what I mean? And what that could be in you. And those are the things that like are the beacons that go like, okay, I can get there because I've been that.
It's like a hint, yeah. I actually just watched Teal Swans. I don't know if you've seen it. Her
I've
video.
like seen all her videos. I've probably seen this one. They're so good. Which one?
You introduced her to me. I had never heard of her. I actually would see in some of the unblockings, people would comment for reparenting, like, I saw Teal Swan as my mom. Oh, wow. And I was like, who's named Teal Swan?
Like, yeah, I know, right?
This person.
Yeah.
And then B, people kept saying that a lot of our theories are very similar, or teachings, even though I think she integrates way deeper into the psychology, is really magical. But when I finally tuned into her, I was like, I love, what she's up to with all of the backgrounds and the videos.
So cool.
Amazing.
I know.
But she had this great video on menstruation and periods and like how to heal if you are having PM. And it was just so beautiful about like all of the old traditions of what women would, like one thing she said that really struck out to me and made me actually go buy a moon cup was she was like, because she has the extrasensory of seeing frequencies, and she was like looking at period blood she was like, it's like the equivalent of looking at breast milk on a frequency level. Yes. It's so powerful. Yeah. She was like, and you're throwing that in the trash.
We throw that shit away. Yeah. I remember that video.
So it was really fascinating to have that different, I mean, I've heard a lot of elements before that were in her video, but it really hammered it home, and she's so strong that it was like very fascinating that this is a systematic issue that
massively. And I think it's so connected to the witchy thing too, because you know, when women would have periods at the same time, they'd go off and
sink and then go into their huts. I do want a hut. I want to be away from Max when I'm having those different cycle phases. I just want to be alone. It's that natural inclination.
I think that's why it makes you crabby then. You know, like, cause it's like, okay, no one get near me because no one's supposed to be near me.
Totally.
Like, you know.
And I'm not supposed to be in society right now. I'm supposed to be inward. And we could go on forever. It was a good video.
That's its own rabbit hole for sure.
We have to remember to link that. What's the most kismet thing you've ever manifested?
Oh, wow. God, I would say, well, because I'm a passive manifester, so I don't ever really think about what it is that I want. I think literally manifesting a career that I never, like only my young, dreamiest self would have been even given herself license to dream of. Like, totally. If you told me 2 years ago, or even a year and a half ago, like you could be where you are now, like there's no way that there's no way.
I hope that's the most expanding comment anybody hears.
I just couldn't ever think that this would be my life now.
You're so in your flow too. It's really magical. Okay, so these are kind of flash questions for each of the types that you'll give like flash answers on. What are the best travel tips for each type, or like where to travel, how to travel?
What you want to look at actually is your G center, which is that kind of diamond one in the middle of your chart. If that one is open, you're a really good person who can travel basically anywhere in the world. Wow. If you have that one colored in yellow, you have to be a little bit more specific, and unfortunately or fortunately, you're not someone who can just pick up and go anywhere and see the world and do the things and all this kind of stuff, because for you it's so much more about you selecting and curating your environment rather than being that go with the flow person. So that's like a big area where I had FOMO, for example.
Everyone's pulling out their phones to look. That's them. I love it.
So that's a good sign, I guess. It's like we're giving valuable information. But I always kind of like had envy when I was younger of like, you know, even now, like when I see people on Instagram, like make like, you know, we'll give it all up and we'll go to travel the world for a year or whatever. That could just never be
me. Yeah,
I could just never do that. So it's about the G center is a big one. But also as a projector, I would say any type of travel, vacations, whatever, has to be centered around actually relaxing on vacation rather than like going on an activity vacation. And the same for reflectors. It's like the worst thing you want to do is go on like, you know, a camping trip or a hiking trip or a discovery trip or any of those type of things. Those are probably the worst.
I'm the same. Yeah, as a projector, I've always been like, oh, fuck no.
Yeah.
Sounds like a job. Yeah.
Yeah, can't do that. And then there's so many other specifics in someone's chart that will say, for example, whether they need a structured type of holiday versus a non-structured type of holiday, where you like pre-plan everything and have your itinerary versus don't.
Wow.
So yeah, but just based on your energy, if you're a non-energy type, definitely don't travel somewhere where it's going to be a lot of output, because
so projector, reflector, but the others can
if that's what they want to do. Again, like you have to check with whether that's something that actually lights you up,
or if you're getting the command to go and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so it really reflects on the type as well as that G center. What in the chart determines how each one builds their self-esteem?
God, that's such a layered question.
It is. Yeah.
How they build their self-esteem, I guess, really comes back to how close you can kind of like reach for your real design, like your real self, right? So the further away, it's literally as simple as the further you get away from feeling like you, the more self-esteem issues you have, because it's that disparity between the soul, the underneath, and the body us, when energetically what's happening is that the soul is always communicating one thing and then the body self is communicating another, and when those two things are not when they're not together, when it's mixed messaging for the universe doesn't ever really know how to help you, because it's saying soul knows it wants money but body has so much judgment over that, so I'm trying to send you money but I don't know what to send you, for example. So it's that same thing of like your self-esteem is always going to be bad because there's not going to be that togetherness when you're just living further and further away from all the different layers of what is in your design.
I love that. And I really firmly believe that we're what is it? It's like they'll say often like we have a spirit, and I don't believe that. I believe we're a spirit with a body. Like it's like that comes first before this is just a human suit that we're all playing around
and
with.
Everyone knows that feeling of like, you know, when you just feel like ugh, like when there's that feeling underneath of like I'm just not me, like I just don't feel like me, you just feel like you're betraying yourself. That's basically in human design, that's what gives us that low self-esteem, because we're like, we know where we could, like the soul knows where it wants to be and the body just isn't there, and so we're like betraying ourselves.
I love that, and anybody can tap in and feel that and understand that. How would each type benefit from knowing how to deal with rejection?
Ooh, like you want to like talk about relationships here?
Just anything, like anything that you know, not being seen, not being good enough, not like any time that you feel rejected in the smallest or the biggest capacity, whether if it's even something on Instagram that triggers you that you're not good enough for.
So with manifestors, one of the biggest things I would say is that they do have, and this is here to help them with their cause, with manifesting their lives and whatever. They do have a selective aura, which basically means that they will draw towards them the people that are supposed to be on their train, and they will keep away, or life will keep away for you, the people that just don't get you, don't understand what it is you're about, don't want to get on your train. Their lives are going here and you're going there. It's just the way that there's like that mechanism just naturally works when you're living according to your design. So manifestors often really fear.
Trump's a really good example of
exactly.
that. He's a great example.
He's a great example of it. Like he's doing what he's doing, and people who really get him are like getting on his train.
Yeah. And who don't just are so polarized by it.
Exactly. Yeah. So he's an extreme example because he's really like people love or hate. But there's always that mixture of really getting it or really not getting it in manifestors. And so manifestors with rejection, I would actually say like you need to reframe the rejection of like, that's actually protection. The universe helping you. And that's a good sign, because the more reactions you get from people, not always negative, but just the ability to tune into the way people are reacting to what you're doing is actually a really good thing, because it means you're living your design. It means you're actually being your biggest, most powerful, most impactful self.
Awesome.
So rejection for a manifestor is like, great, let's do it. Like I'm living, you know?
Yeah.
Cool. You reject me, that's cool. Bless you. You're on your path, and see you. And then with projectors, you know, the one time where they really will, you can use rejection as a fuel or as a self-awareness tool of like, what part of me getting that rejection was me trying to push myself to try and get seen out of that. Because a rejection, if someone doesn't see, let's take you for an example, right? If someone says to you, well, I don't think that what you're doing is like right or good or whatever, you'd be like, that's real. Fine. Yeah. You'd be like, that's fine. But if you've been trying to look for that person to validate it and then they said that would hurt so much more.
Yeah.
So it's about like with the projector, it's so much about like being like that. How much of that was my need to feel seen? Yeah. And how can I like remove that again?
And how can I just see myself and believe in myself, stay on my path and wait for the invitation?
Recognize myself. Yeah. Which is the hardest thing for projectors to do. And then generators and manifesting generators need to start prioritizing the fact that actually, because what they all do is they abandon their own preferences from day one, right? In order to do things for other people. So rejection is actually, you're not doing my agenda versus, oh, hold on a second. My agenda, my own agenda, if I'm a generator or a manifesting generator, is my compass from the divine showing me where to go. So I have to stop abandoning that and giving away the preference to someone else's thing, right? Yeah. So anytime a generator or a manifesting generator experiences rejection, it's like, oh, that's a sign that I need to take my preferences out to lunch again. Okay. I need to like, where did I not listen to those? Yeah. Because if I'm telling you that you have the power to reject me, that means that your agenda is more important than mine. Yeah. And it isn't.
I love that. And then reflect.
And then reflectors, hey, if you're rejecting me, you're rejecting yourself. Yeah. Like you need to go look at that, honey. Like I'm just like, if I'm here and I'm like totally, like
that's your stuff. And I think they're really good. Like the few that I know are pretty like, not that they're spacey, they're just so magical that they don't seem to get affected that much by other people if they're in their power a little bit. Yeah. Quick tips for the ideal resting situation for each type, which we kind of covered. But like, what are those? Just in a quick.
Yes. For this. So, well, okay. Rest in itself and self-care looks obviously so different, and it is just based on, I think, like everyone should just feel okay to kind of do it the way they need to do it,
and they like it.
It is that simple as well. But you know, with projectors and reflectors, they need rest because work actually tires them out. Even if they love what they do, work does take stuff out of them because you don't create your own life force. So you're always borrowing on other people. So right now we're borrowing off these guys. Exactly. So with us, rest is not this kind of like beautiful indulgence. It's actually like something that you have to do to literally make sure that when you are on, you're more effective. It literally will make your work time less good if you don't do the rest. Right. And with manifestors, they have to understand that it's okay to kind of rest in between getting just to spontaneously just go do things. So they have to understand that their engine like revs and stops and revs and stops and revs and stops. So in between the revving, they have to just rest and wait for the next rev to come. And then with generators and manifesting generators, you know, do whatever resty self-care things you really enjoy.
Yeah. Like really tune in.
Yeah. Instead of like, oh, I should now do meditation because everyone's doing it. Or I should now, you know, take a bath. Yeah. Like.
And you would say the same for all the types, right? Like, don't buy into all the stigma that's going on. Like, what actually feels good? Is it eating bonbons and watching a movie? Fucking do that.
Yeah, like, 1,000%. Like, that could be self-care just the same. Like, I'm so not into that stuff anyway. Like, that checklist of anything that felt like a spiritual checklist that I had to abide by in order to qualify as, like, a spiritual enough person. I'm like, I can't. Like, I just don't even make me look at it anymore. Like, I can't.
This isn't gonna work. Yeah. Okay, cool. That's really beautiful. Now, can you tell us more about the project that's coming out, which I know we covered in the video, but I really think it's so important for people to access this information and really understand how to decondition themselves so they can be in their type.
Yeah. Well, I was getting so many requests from people of like, I'm trying to find more information out online and I don't know where to go, and it's also confusing, or it doesn't sound right to me and it doesn't ring true, and it's people just, you know, Google is so wide and so, you know, so many different opinions on there, that I basically was like, if I was first starting to learn human design and I didn't have a disability that I have to basically download it, what would I like to just give it to me in one nutshell? Because I'm a very impatient learner. I don't like to kind of like pull from so many. I just want someone to give it to me super clear.
Yeah,
so I was like, I would love to access more people and get through to do more readings of people. So what I was coming to the conclusion of is, wouldn't it be great if I did a general reading for a generator, a manifesting generator, a reflector, a projector, and a manifester, that wouldn't, without going into the specifics of who you are, if I can't read for you, you can at least learn the basics of what it means to be your energy type.
Yeah.
And then you can get the one for your projector husband, and then you can make sense of how you guys work so differently, and
totally.
You can listen to
and accept each other more.
Yeah.
And your children, that's the huge thing.
It's the big one.
Like the more friends of mine that reach out about human design stuff and they're like, we can't get in with Jenna. I'm like, wait until the things come out, because they're also, in fact, I have a friend who's like, I'm actually really afraid of how to be a mother for my manifesting son. Like he literally will run out into the street and I don't know what to do with this kid, but he's so magical and I don't want to ruin this magic that he has.
Wow.
So I think it's going to be so beneficial for parents to learn how to parent their children.
Totally. And it will just, after that we will do a specific one for parenting, and there is a specific one on diet and food coming out as well.
Great.
But the first 5 are just, will be just like, this is a general reading for you for being a generator, and this is what it's about, so that you can understand yourself more, just on a general level. And even if you never delve into anything else of your human design, just knowing the way you're supposed to literally just exchange energy with the world around you, if you can truly implement that to all the max level that it can be implemented to, is life-changing.
And where will they be able to find that on the site?
Just on my website, jennazoe.com.
Great.
Yeah.
And also for the people who are just tuning in and have never really heard what human design is, you definitely check out Jenna's Instagram, because you're so generous already with so much of the information you give about dieting, eating, everything, like workout, sexuality. You have such great tips already on there. So it's so accessible.
My other half jokes are with me all the time though, because he's always like, no more essays, don't stop writing essays.
People love them.
He's like, just say having a good time in LA. I'm like, no, that's no value add. My whole thing now is the way that you live a good life is by providing more value than you're receiving. I think so too. So I think just don't.
That's how come we wanted to take things on a much bigger scale rather than just one-on-one sessions, because it's there's so much more value they can get even out of these conversations. There's already so much more integration and value.
Totally.
So I'm glad. Thank you for being my first
Thank you,
guest.
Lacy. This was so much fun.
Yes, and thank you to Lila and Shannon who are here, who have been
powering us up.
Yeah,
Thanks for lending us your energy.